Hey everyone, welcome to Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park. This is Ranger Matt, and we are back again with another episode of our Discovering Fort Abraham Lincoln. Today, you're going to visit with Johan on a trip through the Slant village. We hope you enjoy it.
Welcome to Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park. My name is Johan, and I'll be guiding you through the village today. So North Dakota has been home to people for thousands of years, and the city of Mandan, my hometown, has been here for about 140 years. 21 of those, I've lived there. But going back much further, the people who the city was named after have lived here for, at least in this village that we're going to, for over 200 years, from 1575 to 1781. So if you follow me, I'll bring you into some of the culture and some of the history, and hopefully you learn plenty about the Mandan people. So the village we're about to enter today was one of about 6 or 7 Mandan villages in what we today consider Bismarck, Mandan. If you count the populations of each village, the total population of the community would have in fact been 10,000 to 15,000 people. It was thriving. But if you look at solely on a Slant village, which is the one we're about to enter, there would have been approximately 1,000 to 1,500 people living just in this settlement. So the ravine we're crossing right now was one of a series of defensive boundaries protecting the village, making it a very strategic location for a village to be. The ravine here is about 30 feet deep, protecting the southern side, and then to the east we have the Missouri River, which you'll see soon, and that of course defended the eastern side, but was important for bathing, fishing. The gardens were down by the river bottoms, and then there were significant drop-offs as well to the east and up to the north here. And then on the northwestern side where you see the hills, young boys would have kept watch all day, so if they saw any animals for hunting, any threats, they'd run down to the village and let the men know. Throughout the summer, you're more than welcome to visit the earth lodges here, but while you're visiting the site, it's important to realize that these aren't in fact the original earth lodges, since an earth lodge would usually last only 10 to 12 years before it had to be rebuilt. So these have been reconstructed several times, but the first reconstruction was in the 1930s by the Civilian Conservation Corps, which have played an incredibly important role in preserving history at this park. Although the earth lodges you see aren't original, they have been built on top of the original site, and evidence of that is clear from all the depressions you see surrounding the village site here, showing you where an earth lodge would have been built. And from all these depressions and additional evidence, we've come to believe that there most likely would have been about 86 earth lodges here. So while you're out here, it's amazing to try to visualize what that would have looked like. So it's known that many tribes in the Great Plains lived in teepees, but the Mandan wouldn't have been one of those. They didn't live in teepees permanently anyways, and as you can imagine, you're not going to be moving an earth lodge anytime soon. They were a sedentary people. They stayed in place. And because of that, they were able to do things that tribes that moved around and followed the herds couldn't, and that would be agriculture, farming. Their farming lands, gardening lands would have been down at the floodplains of the Missouri and Heart River, and if you look out, you might even be able to see that we still farm there today. The gardens here were massive, extending up and down the banks of the two rivers, and it would be the role of the women to tend the gardens, with the most important crops being corn, squash, beans, and sunflowers. And one has to acknowledge that these crops were crucial to the Mandan's survival, especially in the hard, cold winter months. So as we already mentioned, an incredibly important part of the Mandan tribe was agriculture. They were an agricultural people. They grew a variety of crops, and that was incredibly important to supplement their varied diet of fish, bison meat, deer meat, and of course, as we'll learn, vegetables. So of all the different crops that the Mandan grew, it's important to include 13 different varieties of corn, 9 different varieties of beans, 3 varieties of sunflowers, and then several different kinds of squash, and of course also tobacco as well. What the Mandan did is that they combined a variety of crops together because they helped each other grow. And what this was called, it was called the Three Sisters Garden, and it was made up of squash, corn, and beans. And so if you look at the corn stalk, you'll see that helps provide a sturdy support for the beans to climb up. But then how the beans help is they provide nutrients for the soil, put nitrogen in the soil, while the squash would lay out a good ground cover, so it helped retain the moisture whenever it rained. And so they all helped each other. 2 incredibly important gardening tools that the Mandan used would have been this gardening hoe right here, taken from a bison shoulder blade. And then in my other hand, you can see a gardening rake taken from a deer antler. So this lodge behind me would have been different from the other living lodges which we have at the village here and that would have been here. It would have acted as a council lodge. And it might be hard to notice from the outside, but once you see the interior, you'll see that it's much bigger. No one would have lived in it, but it acted as a place for governance, for chiefs to meet to discuss matters concerning the village, internally or externally.
Be sure to check out part 2 of this Discovering Fort Abraham Lincoln series as we go inside an earth lodge and learn what life was like living at the on a Slant Mandan Indian village.